Welcome back, everybody, to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze, episode 49. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody. We hit a milestone today as I am recording this. It is July 22nd, and we have just passed 5,000 followers or 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. That's awesome. This week, we're doing something a little bit different. The guys over at Wide Men Can't Jump, their podcast had Bobby and Dan Severn come on to talk about their two matches back 24 years ago for the NWA Heavyweight title. So we are going to jump over to the Wide Men Can't Jump, and I'll catch you guys at the end.
On May 20th, 1995 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then again on July 21st, 1995 in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Super Bowl of Wrestling, two men stepped into the ring for an NWA World Heavyweight title match. The champion, Dan the Beast Severn, the challenger, Bobby Blaze. These two gentlemen both had fantastic matches back and forth for the title, and neither ever threw one single punch. We had an opportunity to sit down with Bobby and Dan and discuss these matches together in one of the first times these two men have spoken in several years. Let's hear now from Bobby Blaze and Dan Severn on their NWA World Heavyweight title matches.
Thanks, Dan, for taking the time for doing this. I appreciate the opportunity, man.
No, Bobby, I'm the same way here. It's just just kind of feel bad that we're not able to keep in better contact, but it's, the crazy life of simply life itself, but it's even crazier yet if you combine life with the professional wrestling world.
Yes, well, that's cool. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Literally, Nathan, you should just simply just be playing this because this is going to be probably the best element of it is, Bobby and I just talking about the business and
hey,
how to survive the business, I think.
Hey, I'm fine with that too, but I do want to, before we dive into that, let's talk about it. You guys had the two wrestling matches for the NWA title. Dan was the champion, Bobby the challenger. Dan, I want to start with you. You recently watched those matches. I sent you the clips, but you went back and recently watched those matches. What did you think on looking back on those, Dan? On those matches, because there was a lot of just pure amateur wrestling, almost felt like a freestyle wrestling match. What was your thought?
No, I mean, it was, with Bobby having an amateur wrestling background as well, obviously, every time that you've got a couple professional performers going out to, how are you going to make your match uniquely different? And, because, running the ropes, doing clotheslines and chopping and, punching, that's basic, I'll say basic professional wrestling 101. But when you get a chance now to realize you got someone that you're working with that same night that has some similar type of background, you try to incorporate that into it just to make the match uniquely different. So I remember doing what I refer to as the public spot. Most people don't even know what public is. But if you're an amateur wrestler, that I should say a little bit higher level, you would know what that is and what benefits that it has. But I just from a showmanship aspect, it would have something that would intrigue professional wrestler viewers. I guess that's probably the best way of doing it. And that's what you're looking for is stuff that it comes from the shoot world, and literally, let's face it. Professional wrestling was all based upon the shoot world, and knowing that now we're simply going to incorporate this into the work world.
Bobby, you look back on these matches, what's your thoughts on them as you see them, especially, how they were more amateur wrestling based?
Well, first of all, I have to say that, speaking of leading to the feet, Dan about suplexed me on my boots on the first move. And that was to be expected. He is the consummate professional, and with that said, and it was very, very well done because had it been an all-out shoot, the match would not have went more than 30 seconds because Dan would have tapped me out or I would have just left the place. So with that said, it was done in such a professional way. I have to not that I'm wearing a hat, but I have to take my hat to Dan for being a gentleman and a professional. We had a gentleman's agreement, if you will, and I've spoken about that before. The one thing I remember, and when I say that, I say it with all due respect, because I have nothing but respect for Dan Severn. And I was an early fan of UFC, and so I remember getting the booking the very next day after Dan had won his first UFC, and it was like we was booked out about a month later. So with that said, the first match I recall, it was all I could do to even try to get behind Dan or counter anything, because anything I was trying to do was already countering, and that was the beauty of it. So that's what made it, I think, both matches look so good, is because the progression was there that, you know, at any given time, I don't think that anyone thought that the first match was anything less than just, you know, let's go out here and just have a good, solid, amateur, tight-based match based off of a shoot with a gentleman's agreement. The second match I thought was a little bit better, only because, again, with the gentleman's agreement in place, and with the NWA World Heavyweight title on the line, which I took prestige in that title, as I'm sure Dan did, carrying that title around. I got behind him a couple of times because it was worked in a way that it was a progression. So if there had been a third match, maybe there would have been even more of me being a little bit more aggressive or assertive with Dan. And with that said, so I think it was a good, both matches I thought were good. The second match I thought was better as an outing for me. But as for Dan, I thought both of them were good outings for Dan, because I think that he was making that transition from the shoot in the UFC into the pro style, and I thought he done a very good job with that, and I respect that very much, because at any given time, you know, it could have turned into an all-out shoot, and that would have been pretty, especially for me. So, and any other person that he would have been working with at that time or in the future. So with that said, I just have to say I was honored to be wrestling for the NWA Heavyweight title, with a champion such as Dan Severn, because he comes from that pedigree of the shoot and of the amateur and of being a professional. So thank you.
Well, no, Bobby, I mean, you leave me a little bit speechless there on that one. I appreciate all the kind words, and the reality there with this match there, Nathan, there, as well as the fact that with each time that a couple men get a chance to work with each other, the first time is always going to be kind of like that feeling out process, that you never had this opportunity to be in the ring with this person. So with each progressive match, you should understand each other's abilities, and after a while, I mean, when you look at guys in the WWE and stuff like that, they've wrestled each other so many times that they don't even have to think about the match anymore. The magic just simply happens. But usually in those first initial matches, well, it's kind of like that filling out process, and there's always that little bit of the unknown. I mean, I've always been known as a rather snug or stiff or pipe wrench type of a worker, and Bobby, that still hasn't changed much over all these years.
Well, good. I respect that.
Go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, I respect that, because I never minded working snug or stiff or what have you, because I think that's a part of the business. It should be, because I think, and I always thought that, and I still do, I still think that, and I agree with you, the more you work with someone, obviously, the easier the magic flows or what have you. But I always like that snug and stiff style, that strong style, if you will, without taking liberties on someone else's body, of course. But I'm glad you're still out there kicking ass, and still working stiff, snug, and shooting. So good for you, man.
Well, I always tell people, because I've had other matches with other people, like a Jim Cornette, for example. The fact that they wanted me to do something to Jim Cornette, and Jim's eyes were getting big and stuff like that. And I go, Jim, I said, this is all you really got to do. I said, you will be never treated better than if you were being carried in your own father's arms. And then when it was all done, we got that little spot right there, he just smiled. He goes, I'm still in one piece. He goes, you couldn't have said it any better than what you did there at the time there, Dan. Yeah. And again, that's what the beauty of professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling for what it is, to entertain folks to give them for that duration of the time of that match, to let them know that they're witnessing something really unique, incredible. Well, at least we hope it all turns out that way. But it's like a suspended animation. You just want them to view this and be entertained by it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think also that when people, and I'm really careful about how I use the word entertainment, but I think the people should get entertained, but I think there should be that realistic element to the matches. And I think in our matches, I know we did, and I know in all, keeping it professional and making it look real without killing someone, not kicking someone in the face or taking a liberty with someone, but really taking care of that person all the while being making the match look as professional and as realistic as possible. Those elements, and I'm still a fan of professional wrestling too, and I always have been. I probably always will be. But I just like that element of surprise, the suspension of beliefs that you can watch. These two men are out there, and it's an athletic, competitive performance. And I know you've been to Japan, Dan, several times like myself, and that's one of the reasons I liked working over there so much was because they always kept it as a competitive, like it was still a sport. And that was the thing about our two matches. And, again, it was we tried to keep it somewhat competitive and realistic. And in doing so, we entertained the people that bought tickets to see that match along with the other matches on the show. And that's why I'm a professional wrestling fan, I guess. Always, like you said, that suspended belief that these two men could do it, but also with the athletic performance. Because face it, we were athletes. You're an athlete, to get to the levels you've achieved, and to put that into a performance that's going to entertain millions of people around the world. It's just one of those things that you're honored to do. I think you're doing an injustice to yourself if you're not out there busting your butt in the ring and trying your hardest, working snug, stiff, what have you. Again, without taking liberties, but making it look professional for their entertainment, so they did buy that ticket. So you give them their money's worth and then some, and I know you've always done that. And I think our match provided entertainment in both incidents. And if there had been a third, like you said, I think there would have been a third or fourth if we'd have worked more and more together. They would have progressively gotten better and better matches out of us, for sure. But anyway, the athletic performance is important.
Yep, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just totally agreeing with what you're saying. The more you work with people, the better you know each other, and they're each other's pros and cons, what they're willing to do, what they're willing to receive, and and that's where it's getting be respectful. There's not many people that I trust all that well in the professional wrestling industry. Ironically, I've been hurt far worse in my professional wrestling career than I have been in my cage fighting career, which is almost like a contradiction in terms, but you have to put your body into another person's hands and pray to God they know what to do with your body, because if they screw up, it's not them who gets hurt, you get hurt. And you know very well, professional wrestling is the highest death rate industry of all professions. And it's usually not because of a death inside of a ring, but usually because of the accumulation of injuries over time, and then now starting getting hooked on painkillers and muscle relaxers, and they need something to get them up and going in the morning. They need something to put them down at night, and then there's, they all think they need to look like Adonis in order to go out there when they simply, just realize, just go to the gym, do your hard work. I mean, it's just doing those kind of things, and it's kind of like a vicious cycle. Vince McMahon says, no, don't do this because of our wellness policy, but yet on the other side, the flip side of the coin, is you really saying the truth about this? No. But, what can you say? That's that magical, mystical, not quite all that truthful of an industry at times.
Yeah.
Tim, do you have any questions for Dan and Bobby?
Oh, they're legion. But what I want to do is kind of approach it this way. I hadn't seen the matches in their entirety till yesterday. So I'm watching them, and I'm finding myself being taken back. I'm 51, and I felt like I had been taken back to maybe 10 years old, watching Stampede Wrestling up here in Calgary, where I'm at. What struck me right away was that there was no punches, not even an attempt to make a punch. Nobody going up to no ring work, rope work, no high flying. Of course, I wouldn't expect that from you two guys because that's not really your thing. But when I was watching those matches, I found myself totally sucked in to the storyline, which for me was, here's Dan Severn, who at that point his reputation is, this guy's a killer. And then we got Bobby Blaze, who looks like, he might have the skill to kind of hang with this guy, but Dan's probably going to kill him. But it doesn't really play out that way. What I really loved about it was, I believe it's in the second match, where Bobby catches Dan with a couple of kicks and then hits the clothesline. And as a fan, I'm finding myself going, oh, holy, Bobby might have a shot at this. And then Dan hits him with a submission, and it's over. And I'm going, that was only 8 minutes? That felt like 25 minutes of awesomeness. And I guess my point is some young guys really should watch this match so that they could see how much you can do in a short period of time without having to go to 72 finishers and guys kicking out every 10 seconds and all of this stuff. To me, that was as close to what the wrestling I miss and what it should be that I've seen in a long, long time. Comments?
Dan, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I just I'm sure, just like Bobby, I appreciate, the compliments on the match. I really was never going to be, Jim Cornette probably said it best, Dan Severn was never going to be a flashy wrestler in the sense that I'm not going to go on there, jump on a microphone and cut killer promos. He always said that, he goes, you're the greatest thing to ever hit professional wrestling. He goes, you're a wrestler who actually can wrestle. So I was a throwback from days gone by, and that's the nice part when you are finally able to come across someone like a Bobby Blaze, and that now you can actually incorporate some of the things from your past. You're more in your comfort area of things. Is that right? Because I was this past weekend, the Ultimate Fighting Championship was taking place. I was out there working for the UFC for a couple of days, and a lot of questions were brought up, and they've said, well, what do you contribute to your overall success in that? And I says, well, I always stayed inside my comfort zone when I was doing my MMA type stuff. I knew that my striking ability, well, point blank, it sucked. Okay, I did not have any striking ability. But I always know that, well, my opponent has to be within arm's range in order to strike or kick or whatever. I was always good about staying outside the range, and I knew how people train. If they throw it out, they're going to recoil it back, and as they recoil it back, I follow them right on into either a standing clinch or stuffing them up against the cage wall or taking them on down. And it's kind of like now I look right at them and I go, hello, and welcome to my world. You shall never see the light of day again, because I know my reward would be being punched, and no one wants to be punched. I don't care how tough they are, stuff like that. It is better to give than to receive. So again, it's kind of a long roundabout way of answering the question, but Bobby was able to put me into a comfort zone to where we're going to have a better match, just because now I'm doing things that I've been studying since I've been in junior high school. The sport of amateur wrestling. So that's where, again, I said that comfort zone, and the more that you work with each other it becomes just simply magical. Neither one of you even know sometimes what is actually going to take place after you work with each other. Just kind of like you simply just know what's going to take place maybe at the end, but from that point on, you're just going to go out there and just put on a show. Take the audience to an emotional roller coaster.
I appreciate the compliments from Tim as well, and also from Dan. I completely agree that we both got into the more of a comfort zone, especially in that second match. We knew a little bit more what each of us could do and expect of each other. And I think also, again, it was that progression of feeding into, I think in the first match it was maybe a Japanese armbar, and I just happened to be right beside the rope, so there's that, he didn't tap out. He would have, he didn't. And then the next time it's caught, within a short period of time, I'm dead center in the middle of the ring, and of course, there it is, out of nowhere, which, again, boom. And then wins the match. Second match, it looks like we have to put that suspension of belief to the fans, like, this guy might have a chance, and because Dan's reputation precedes him, and rightfully so, being a champion in the UFC and amateurs and collegiate wrestler, et cetera. And then out of nowhere, I get something in on him, but when I go one step further, or he, sidesteps, there it is, another submission right out of nowhere, and that's just being the professional in both and competitive, because we pretty much laid everything in, but we didn't kick at each other in the face or try to punch. As you mentioned, there was no punches thrown or anything. Those were just a couple of side kicks rather to keep Dan at bay, because he's going to shoot in on me, and we both just kind of played off each other on that. And as he said, there you are, lights out. His reward's down there in the ground, because he's got me in a Fujiwara arm bar, and there's nowhere to go except for maybe he's going to rip my arm out of socket and beat me over the head with it. But once I tapped, that wasn't the case, because being a professional and again, not even really knowing everything we were going to do, but just being there competing against each other, knowing, okay, here's, this may be the outcome is the arm bar, or the Japanese arm bar, or the second match, the Fujiwara arm bar. The rest of it's just, let's put on a really good professional competition match for these people. And I thought we got a lot out of 8 minutes. I appreciate you noticing that too, Tim. And it was an honor for me to get to go 8 minutes with Dan Severn. I'll just say that. So thank you very much.
Was the match called completely in the ring, or did you just get the finish in the back and then call it in the ring, or was there anything discussed backstage? I know, knowing you two guys, I assume it was called in the ring.
I think a little bit of both. I think again, you get basically a basic premise, and then you kind of go from there. You always want to know that you can start off a match with something, and you know what the finish is, but pretty much almost anything in between that, you'll talk to each other to say, well, this is some general ideas, but there are some guys that they'll go there and they'll try to lay out every single aspect of the match, and I look at them, I go, I am not that good. I can't remember. You lost me after the third item right there. I'm thinking, there's just a certain premise that you're the baby face, you're the heel, or actually we're two baby faces, and now we're going to put on an athlete contest. I understand these concepts right there, and it's going to be a show of give and take, and try to, if you just go back to that, suspend that animation and create something that even sometimes you don't even know how good the match will be once it's over with. Until you hear the crowd's reaction, or even from your fellow wrestlers. So, I mean, what your match really does good with even your fellow wrestlers. They're like, well, that was awesome, and whatever else have you. Of course, they would be using a much more colorful language, but I'm trying to keep this good for the air.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dan. I couldn't have worded it better. The only thing I will add is when I walked through the curtain in Knoxville in the second match, Buddy Landell was in front of the monitor, as was Cornette, and Cornette turned around, and next thing I know, people started clapping, and Buddy said something like, "You've got to send that to Japan," and Jimmy just hugged me and thanked me. But, it was just, that's that feeling that just respect of your fellow peers that you went out there and done what you were supposed to do. So that's the thing. And we got that pop both times. I don't think the outcome was given away at any given point, other than most people probably thought, Dan Severn is going to win this match. And rightfully so, you did. And both times the people popped, in Charlotte and in Knoxville. The people, like I said earlier, I think they got their money's worth in our match and then some, because we did deliver a professional athletic performance. And not a lot was called. We discussed a couple of things, and not a lot was talked about in the back, and not a lot was called in the ring. It's just a matter of filling each other out. We had an idea, like Dan said, from the lockup to go, and then we had an idea somewhere around this time period there'll be a finish in there. And I thought both matches come off really good. My favorite was the second one, but I enjoyed them both equally as well, because I was a little bit nervous more in the first one, trying to keep up with Dan, and again, rightfully so with his status. And then the second one, just getting more comfortable with Dan and being around Dan and knowing that, there's a little bit of trust factor here, that when we go in there, we're just going to go at it and see what happens. And again, the main thing was, other than professionalism, was delivering a good quality professional match for the fans that they obviously enjoyed both nights, because some of the boys in the back popped as well as the fans outside popped, and that's what it was all about. And for that, I'm forever grateful just to have had the opportunity to be in the ring with Dan Severn. I appreciate it, Dan.
So again, thank you, Bobby, for getting nice compliments, something like that. And I just appreciate the fact of being in the ring with someone like yourself that has shaped up a background with amateurs and stuff like that, so that we can do something different for the fans. Because bottom line, that is our job. Or we're there to entertain, and again, whether it's to, you're also looking to get reaction. I mean, going if you look at the terms of the heel and the baby face with the heel, he's always looking for some type of a negative reaction out of the crowd. The baby face looking for a positive reaction. We're basically, Bobby and I were actually neither one. We went out there as two competitors, so there was really the heel premise. Or the babyface premise. If anything, you might just say it was two baby faces going out there and simply just putting on an athletic performance.
Right. I agree 100%. And again, thank you very much.
Well, Dan, I know you're strapped for time, and we don't want to keep you too long. I know you're a busy man, so we do want to thank you again for jumping on here and talking with us. Let our people, our listeners, know where they can find that, keep up with you, and I know you're all over the place, but let them know where they can keep up with Dan Severn.
You would think that this old part would actually be slowing down by now, but if anything, I think I'm catching a second wind. And then in terms of that, I always tell people that I am drowning in opportunities on a daily basis, but oh, what a way to go. But the best way is to go into my website at dansevern.com. It's simple as that, Dan Severn. Severn is spelled SEV, like Victor, ERN, dansevern.com. And there's ways of emailing me, contact me. Now, you may have some problems because that website is under construction right now. But the next, I'll say, couple weeks, it should be finally up. I'm supposed to be visiting with the group that's redoing it this coming week, and then it should be the new version should be up at that point in time. But I'm still all over the place, traveling and putting down the miles. I mean, when you look at just this past week of being in Phoenix, I was there for a little while, and then to travel up to Vegas, work for the UFC for a couple of days, then travel once the show was done on that Saturday night, packed up, drove to Carlsbad, New Mexico. Had my youngest son there with me. My youngest son's 20, but he had never been to the Carlsbad Cavern. I've been there several times, but he has not. So we drove to the night, made it there, took the tour, went out and had dinner, and then made it right back to the cavern again in time to watch, at dusk there, to watch the Flight of the Bats. Now, that is just a awesome spectacle of Mother Nature to see what looks like a tornado of bats. The same cavern that we were in earlier, and we didn't see a single bat inside of that cavern. And when that was done, simply just to drive right straight to Coldwater, Michigan, and it's kind of like been nonstop here. I'm here only for a couple weeks, and I have to be back in Phoenix again to do some other stuff along the way. So I enjoy the life that has been carved out for me. The sad part will be one day it will have to come to an end. But I would have thought that it would have been slowing down, but it has not. And I'm a happy camper for it.
Well, we thank you, Dan, for coming on here and talking with us. Really, we really do appreciate it. And anytime, man, just hit us up anytime you want to talk, just anything. You've got my number, and I'll get, if it's all right, I'll give Bobby your number too, so you guys can stay in contact as well.
I was going to say it's been years since our last spoke to Bobby. Please give him my number off the air, and then I'd like to continue to stay in contact because, as I said, this whole Rolling Stone show is moving around. You never know, I might turn up in your neighborhood shortly. So
it'd be great to stay in touch with you.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump off here now. Thank you once again there for being able to talk with you, Bobby, and also there for Nathan for putting this together.
All right, no problem, Dan. Thanks again.
Sir. Appreciate it.
Bye now.
Well, that was Dan Severn. Bobby, we still got you on here. Maybe we can, talk a couple things here about those matches. Now that Dan had to step away, I know he's a busy guy, but you mentioned the backstage reaction and everyone behind the scenes giving you guys the ovation. Who put the match? Was it Cornette that booked the matches for Smoky Mountain? Was that who booked those matches?
Let me get a couple of cheap plugs in here, of course. You can find me at
Go
Bobby
ahead,
Blaze 744 on Twitter. No, I was just going to, Bobby Blaze 744 on Twitter. And of course my books, and in both books I put Dan Severn over again, of course. But in Pin Me, Pay Me, I talked a little bit about that, and I know you were there a couple of years ago down at WrestleCade when we did the Smoky Mountain panel, and Cornette told me to tell one story about the bathroom, and that's kind of what happened. Being an early UFC fan, and I was hoping to tell Dan about this, but it's off the air, and he's off the air rather. Maybe he'll listen back to the playback, and I certainly hope the fans do enjoy this really short story. But basically, I was an early UFC fan, and I watched them. And, of course, he won on a Saturday night. We had a show. I think we had been in Knoxville or where had we been, I'm not sure. But on Sunday afternoon, we had a Sunday afternoon show in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I went into the restroom, and I was finishing up. Cornette steps in and goes, "Hey, Bobby, you got a minute?" And I'm like, just kind of like peeing over here. And I maybe never let the truth stand in the way of a good yarn, but I don't know if you ever try to stop peeing midstream. But I'm like just looking over the urinal thing there, and Cornette says, I got good news. I got you booked next month. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got you booked against Dan Severn." And I just stopped. I just stopped peeing, and I'll keep it clean at that. But I went over and washed my hands for it, and Jimmy and I. So, yeah, well, it's hard to stop midstream, but I did. But no, that's Adder Patola, of course. But no, Cornette and I, we stepped into the restroom there, and he said, "I've got you booked next month against Dan Severn." And I looked at him, and I was like, "Are you mad at me, Jimmy, or something? He just won UFC last night." And he said, "Yeah, that's why I've got him booked." And I was like, "Oh," and I said, "He does know it's to work, right?" And he goes, "Well, we'll talk about it." And I said something like, "There'll be anything extra in it for me," And he said, "Yeah, I'll take care of you." So that was kind of Cornette had put that together. That was in the Carolinas in Charlotte. That was the Carolina's Memories Tour, and we was over to the Grady Cole Center, and Cornette was trying to, they had a lot of the NWA guys there, the old Crockett Promotion guys there for that show. And then the second one was also, we had the Super Bowl of Wrestling down in Knoxville and for Smoky Mountain, and of course that had people from, everywhere from WWF at the time, WCW. Actually, I don't think he was WCW. I'm not sure. I can't recall that. But USWA and some guys from Georgia and, of course, the Smoky Mountain crew and guys from Canada. I mean, we had people from all over the place. Actually, it was, just a really good Super Bowl of wrestling at the time because with an array of so many matches. And that was just one of the many matches on that card. And it was a different kind of match because we had the NWA Heavyweight Champion in town, Dan Severn, representing that title that I had so much respect for, and I'm sure the other guys did too, because that was just such a prestigious title. But yeah, Cornette put that together through Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and him and I guess Dan or his managers and stuff put that together. And I was the one that Cornette said, you know, well, you're the one. Because I really thought there might have been a couple guys on the crew that Cornette said, I really think you're the one that can do this. And, you know, I thought of Steve Armstrong, and I thought of Tracy Smothers. So they had both, you know, been, you know, pretty good amateur backgrounds as well. I know Tracy did. But, you know, I was honored with my Malenko training, and I had, you know, prior experience and things like that. But I was honored that I was asked to do it. And I'm just, like I said, both, I remember in Charlotte, there wasn't a whole lot said as far as the blueprint for the match. Like we said, we didn't really have to do a lot. We just, I mean, as far as talking it out or trying to go over 101 spots or call a lot, but I remember walking in the back, and I had come out of selling gimmicks, what have you, been back before the locker room, wait for Dan's arrival. When I went back, Dan was in there talking to Cornette, and I, you know, walked up, of course, to introduce myself, and we knew who, you know, each other were, of course, and then Cornette, I don't know, with this, Bob, you don't have a problem putting Dan over, do you? And I looked at Dan, I was kind of shaking his hand still, and I looked at Jim, I go, do I have a choice? You know, so yeah, it was very professional, and it was just, to me, it was an honor to be involved in both matches.
I know when Cornette came up and saw you at the show in Madison for All-Star Wrestling, you came over and spoke to him, and he mentioned the matches with Dan Severn, so I got a kick out of that. I thought that was pretty funny. Tim, any more questions for Bobby? I know Bobby's got a lot to do today, so
yeah, I gotta get ready to get my lunch, guys.
Oh, okay. Well, the only thing I was thinking was, do you think you had mentioned that he figured at least he would get killed in there with Severn? Do you think there's a possibility too that somewhere along the line it occurred to him that, okay, Bobby's at least a kind of a lighthearted guy, and if Dan smacks him a little too hard, or, you know, is a little on the heavy side, Bobby's not going to snap. And because I could see where a guy might get in there with Dan, and he may hit you with one of those throws or some of that stuff he does, and you might not take too kindly to it, and then you might really get hurt. Because if you come at Dan Severn probably with, if it starts to become a shoot, you're probably in a world of hurt.
I don't think it crossed my mind, honestly, because
but your reaction to some of Dan's stiffness would not be unprofessional.
No, because I think Jim knew my style well enough and knew my temperament well enough, and I knew, again, being a professional, that I could take it. I had trained so hard at the Malenkos, you know, in all the different aspects of the pro wrestling. Then I did sometimes on the Sundays, I did the shoot wrestling with the guys that were over there training for that, you know, and just learning and being around a whole lot of different people through the business, having so many matches at that point in my career too. I honestly, I'm sure it had something to do with temperament, knowing that, you know, I didn't, like I told Dan on the phone there, I never minded working stiff or snug or what have you. It was a gentleman's agreement, and it's not ballet. You know, you're out there and you're trying to do a professional, competitive performance, and I took it as such. So I don't even know if that was even factored in, that if anything were to go off, I don't have a question in my mind that, you know, it was all very professionally done, and it never crossed my mind to if he gets me with 1-2 stiff or suplex me on my boots, as I mentioned, or whatever, I understand that it's business only. And that's a lot of times, like we'd say in Japan, you know, you might work stiff or snug or what have you, but it's business only. And again, we didn't take liberties, punch someone in the face or kick someone or down or something like that, you know. So I think we went in there as competitive athletes and performed a professional wrestling match to the best of our ability and to entertain the professional wrestling fans to the best of our ability. I think, again, to be redundant, you know, we gave them their money's worth, then some, in both matches. And again, especially the second match, because I thought there was just a whole lot more to it as we got to know each other better and trusted each other more. So I hope I answered your question.
Well, I'll just say in conclusion, I really, honestly, I mean, we're acquaintances, and I think you're a great guy and all that, but I can really say that I think people need to. This is a kind of match where they should show it to young guys and go, you need to learn how to do this. Even if you don't do it in the ring necessarily, you need to learn how to do this so that you can take that and go to another spot, as opposed to all this high flying. No, but you don't see this anymore, and I would suspect most of the guys can't do this. So
yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that a lot of guys can still do that kind of either match, especially that second one. Again, without all the punching, high flying, spot. I take that as a great compliment, Tim, and I appreciate that. And if anyone's out there listening, especially young talent, yeah, for sure, that second, watch both matches, but yeah, try to pull off something like that second match,
well,
and see how it turns out, because we need, that's the basis of professional wrestling. That is a very good professional wrestling match, as you mentioned earlier when talking to Dan about how it reminds you when you took you back to you like 10 years old or what have you, watching the Stampede. That's the thing. That match, both matches will take you back, because that's the grassroots and the ground floor of professional wrestling really, should be.
And if you really watch them, watch the crowd. In the first match, they're kind of like, okay, what's this? They sort of know who Severn is, I think, but he's kind of a tad bit of an unknown quantity in the ring at that point. And then when you see the second match, there's a bit of a buzz in the crowd, and they're hooked. And you guys had both mentioned that I really think if there'd have been a chance for you guys to run like a program together, that would have ended up being money at the end, because the crowd was slowly starting to get invested in what was going on. Can this young upstart can he find a way to beat this wily old veteran who is a beast in there and looks like he should be able to kill everybody? And yeah, it's sorely missed. That's all I can say. I thank you for doing it, even though you did it 25 years ago. 25 years ago, but I still that's the kind of stuff people need to watch it. And that's all I'll say about that.
They say if wishes was horses, beggars would ride. But I do wish, I wish there had been a third, honestly, a third, fourth, and fifth match, because I really thought maybe that was where it was going to go. And I don't know what, creative booking would have taken place or not, because you can look back in hindsight 2020. But I could see the people and feel the people really get into it. And I know Dan and I were starting to click. But if we could have done that third match, I'm sure, it would have been even that much better. And finished out a program, whether it be over 6 or 8 weeks or, a few months on the air or what have you. So, I certainly would have welcomed that at that time, of course. But I appreciate the kind compliments. And I do think a lot of people really did enjoy the matches then. And I think that people that watch it back now still enjoy it, like yourself. And I haven't seen them either one for a while. I watched the second one here maybe about a year ago, but it's forever etched upon my mind for the most part of it. But I just remember the people popped and the people in the back in that one section watching the monitor, as mentioned, Buddy and Jimmy, and there was some other boys around there that started clapping. That's always good to be respected by your peers. That hey man, what a heck of a good match that was. So thank you very much, Tim. And I do appreciate the opportunity you guys gave me on your program, Nate, for putting this together. I appreciate it, because I hadn't
no problem, brother.
For a while, and I was really looking forward to this. We had been trying to put this together, I know, for several months, but I'm glad we finally did get put together, because it was a real honor to share the ring with Dan Severn, and it was a real honor for you guys to have me on your program today. I'm usually laughing, joking, and having a cutting up, and we're having a blast. But as you can tell from the tone of my voice, I'm really thankful to have this opportunity to speak to Dan and talk, about these professional matches we had. Like you said, Tim, maybe some 25 years ago, but still, I think some people can learn from them. And if nothing else, they can enjoy them. I think both matches are very enjoyable, especially the second. So, thank you.
The other thing I noticed too, I keep bringing up stuff because I keep thinking of stuff, is another thing people could take away from this is you can lose and win. You don't win the match, but you're the one who's if those matches continue in a Jim Cornette vein, Bobby Blaze gets over.
Yeah.
Losing doesn't hurt Bobby Blaze in this match one bit.
No,
which is another thing which people don't now. That's he got beat.
Yeah. Well, pin me, pay me.
Or I don't want to.
Right?
I don't want to do the job to that guy. Okay, well, you're not really doing the job, really.
No.
You're losing to a guy you should lose to.
Yeah, you're doing your job. That's your work for the night. And sometimes you got your work cut out for you, and you go in there, you do your best anyway, and you come up a little bit short and a better man for the champion in this case, or in both cases actually, better man in the ring, and the champion. Combine that together there. He wins the match that night, and it didn't hurt me one bit as far as the credibility, because it was a competitive athletic performance that entertained the people.
Exactly.
And at the end of the night, it wasn't a draw. There had to be a winner and a loser, and the NWA champion that night got his arm raised, and rightfully so. He won the match.
and for that, I wish you nothing but Canadian chocolate in your future.
But I'll say this: if you haven't seen the match, you can go on to the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze YouTube page. It is up there. Both matches are up with Bobby's commentary. Or you could do something really cool and listen to Dan and Bobby both talk and watch the matches here at the same time as well. I think that would be something really cool. But go to the Bell to Bell YouTube page. Tex Johnson does a great job over there on their YouTube page. Bobby mentioned his books. They're available at tinyurl.com/blazebook1 for Pin Me Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel, and tinyurl.com/blazebook2 for I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. And go ahead and, if you want to try Amazon Prime, try it out with their link, tinyurl.com/bbtryprime. It gives the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze a little kickback. And it's a great podcast. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe to it, listen to it. I haven't missed an episode. I love it. I enjoy it. Jeremy, Bobby, Tex, all those guys over there do a great job. So go check it out.
Futon Jeremy.
Thank you.
As I like to call him.
Oh, not a problem. But, Bobby, we do appreciate you.
Nobody's going to pop for Futon Jeremy. Really?
Oh, Futon Jeremy. I didn't get it.
I didn't catch it. I got you. Okay.
I didn't catch it either.
Yeah, no, I'm going to start calling him Futon Jeremy until he gets a bed.
We'll send him a Sam card.
Love him on that show. He's really good on the show.
Jeremy's great. Bobby, you put your Twitter out there, I believe. It's at Bell to Bell Blaze for the show page, and you can follow Bobby at Bobby Blaze 744. So give him a follow. Bobby will usually follow you back. He's a great guy to talk to, talk old wrestling with. And this has been fun, Bobby. I really do appreciate you doing this.
All right, everybody. Thanks for checking that out. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the boys over at Wide Men Can't Jump podcast. Please go check their show out. Tim, Nate, TR, thank you guys. That was awesome of you to share that with us. Bobby, Dan, that was a hell of a discussion. I'm glad you guys could do it. For our fans at home, if you have not seen the matches that Bobby and Dan did 25 years ago, go check them out. They're on YouTube. They're definitely worth watching. Guys, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week, hopefully with a regular episode. As long as the meth heads in Bobby's neighborhood haven't stolen his wires again, we will be back. So for myself, Jeremy Vilmer, for Bobby Blaze, for Dan Severn, for the boys back at Wide Men Can't Jump, and for our damn futon, bye-bye, everybody.